So first, let's talk about recruiting our physician partners. So when we think about recruiting our physician partners, don't we automatically think about these folks? Our rock stars, our board members, our physician donors. Gosh, if a physician is a donor, wouldn't that make them a great partner? Well, it totally could. But in almost every organization, when I go into, we start with these. But what I want to say and what I want to challenge you today is think beyond these partners, think beyond your rock stars. Let me give you some examples. So one of our clients, first time I flew down, it was my first time working with them, and I sat down to meet with some of their physicians. You know, they had said, these are our physicians, these are our prospective physician partners. You need to meet with them. And first one, chief of pediatrics, phenomenal physician, former board member, very engaged with the foundation, very philanthropic herself. You know, but as I got to talking to her, she said, you know what? I actually don't have a lot of grateful patients. I only see patients once a week, and it's in the free clinic. Next meeting, same thing. Critical care ICU physician for pediatrics. Again, board member, so engaged, huge advocate for the foundation, wonderful person, wonderful physician. Again, I sat down, he said, you know what? I actually don't see a lot of gratitude because my patients aren't awake. So one of the best examples I can give you of looking beyond these rock stars and these physicians, these usual suspects that come to mind, is the physician, Dr. Sanjeev Mehta. So he's an orthopedic physician at one of my clients. And, you know, he was not on the original list of folks for me to speak with. He was not recommended to me by leadership. Our foundation didn't recommend that I speak with him. But in talking to one of the other orthopedic physicians that leadership did recommend that I speak to, he said, you've got to talk to Dr. Mehta. This particular physician, he practices in a more rural area, a little bit outside, a little bit further away from the hospital. But oh my gosh, this physician opened up. He has so many grateful patients. He had no idea that his grateful patients could express gratitude to the foundation. He sent me this picture immediately after our conversation. This was an Army Ranger who had just been discharged from the Army. And apparently this particular Army Ranger, he had received 7 pins to give to family and friends and people that were special to him through his retirement. And he gave one to Dr. Mehta because he had helped him with his knee. And so here we've got a physician who's on no one's radar. No one knew him. And yet this particular organization, a huge healthcare system, he's given more referrals than any other physician to date. So if you're just starting out, or if you're in an effort that's stalled, or even if you're currently advancing these strategies, I want to take a moment to hone in on the most important factor when it comes to engaging physician partners. And that's our case for support. We've got to find physicians who are practicing in clinical areas of focus and service lines for which we have viable donor-centric funding priorities. You know, I mean, think about what Heather just said, talking about, you know, the importance of case and the importance of aligning our philanthropic priorities with the strategic goals of our healthcare system. There's no different when it comes to choosing our physicians that we want to align our efforts with. So if we don't have funding priorities for which to point our physicians to, and then ultimately help point our grateful patients to, our efforts will hit a brick wall. And so again, we've got to look at, it starts with our case. Doesn't start with our rock stars, or doesn't start with looking at our data. We look at our case and we find those funding priorities. And we also want to make sure that our physicians have grateful patients. And we also want to make sure that our physicians that we aspire to partner with, we want to make sure that they're engaged in our organization. That being said, I also want to point out the importance of not overlooking our younger physicians. And if, for those of you who've worked with me recently, I might sound like a broken record, but there's research that shows that younger physicians are more apt to be engaged with your organization. This has become, they're fresh out of residency. They're eager to get started. They're not as beaten down by things like the electronic health record, those paperwork issues that we've talked about, managed care, all of those things that kind of weigh on our physicians all the time. Our younger physicians, they're more apt to be engaged. And this was published by the Medical Economics Journal. And they were talking about how organizations shouldn't shy away from hiring millennial physicians. And as we see here, millennial physicians, they measure success based on fulfillment and purpose and meaningful relationships. Gosh, isn't that who we want to partner with? That's who we want to partner with for physician engagement and philanthropy. And again, I'm a huge advocate of engaging younger physicians in philanthropy, especially if you're in a community hospital. If you're in a community hospital with physicians that don't have as much experience in philanthropy as maybe our physicians in those academic health centers, this becomes even more important. And from my own personal experience, I could tell you that in our current clients and our organizations we're working with, where we're in those community hospital settings and not in those academic settings, our younger physicians are proving to being more engaged.